When it's time, it's time. And this Pittsburgh Steelers team seems to know when it's time to separate from some of these players. Welcome back to Mike Drop Sports here on a Friday, here for our daily upload. Thank you for joining us. Like, share, subscribe to the video. We truly appreciate it. Let's dive in here on a Friday morning in week 14 of the NFL season and talk about something that might be something that's looming in the future for the Pittsburgh Steelers, the possibilities out there that could potentially be there for the Steelers in terms of who they could bring in or who they could add to an already, okay wide receiver room led by George Pickens. The Pittsburgh Steelers, though, as a franchise, seem to have that feel. They seem to understand when it's time to get rid of or part ways with one of these diva-type wide receivers. Everybody labels these wide receivers as divas, labels their attitude, and kind of makes it an acceptable thing that you just got to deal with their attitudes and deal with their craziness and their piss-poor behavior. But the Pittsburgh Steelers seem to put up with it for so long, and instead of paying, they just part ways. And yes, they had Antonio Brown. They paid him. They gave him one extra contract. But once that ran its course and after he got that money, the Pittsburgh Steelers figured out how to flip him and get him out of the building. Why? Because he was starting to become an issue for the Pittsburgh Steelers. And they knew exactly. They felt it. They knew that inside of that building, it was coming to a boiling point or already had. And it was time to part ways with a guy that was at the absolute top of his game, at the absolute top of the NFL in what he did as a wide receiver. Then you look at Diontae Johnson, a guy in which they gave some money to there also for a couple seasons. But they had realized that when you give up on some plays and things start to become rocky and you'll see the attitude starting to show its ugly face, what do? You flip Diontae Johnson for Dante Jackson, one of the NFL's leaders in interceptions for 2024. A guy that has been always an interception machine. A guy that the Pittsburgh Steelers have been, quite frankly, interested since he was in the draft with Minka and those guys. He was a guy that was targeted by Mike Tomlin and this Steelers organization. So you see the chance after several tries of getting Dante Jackson into the building. You see the opportunity to offload an issue in Diontae Johnson, a guy that had an exuberant salary, and you decided that it was in your best interest to shore up the defensive edges and get rid of a guy that could potentially just be an issue for 2024, a guy that had a lack of production in the touchdown department for almost 600 and some days, almost 700 days without a touchdown for the Steelers, a guy that at times showed some reasons why maybe he shouldn't be paid top flight wide receiver money. A guy right now that's being suspended by his second team this year in 2024, the Baltimore Ravens, for one pay for conduct detrimental to the ball club. And the Steelers, how do they know when exactly it's time? Yeah, they've paid some of these guys, but they know exactly when to get rid of them. They know when the shelf life has expired. And that's something we have to applaud this team about because they don't allow this to boil over to the point that it causes major disruption within this locker room. They don't allow it to contaminate the building. They don't allow it to ruin the culture of the Pittsburgh Steelers to where many say you walk in there and you can feel the way that it's supposed to be. You can feel the energy, the championship pedigree inside of that building. And that is something very exciting to know that the Steelers organization, the Rooneys, Omar Khan right now, Kevin Colbert, Michael Tomlin, and company, it takes a village in there to get this done. It's not just those guys, but they are very aware and they have their finger on the pulse of that building. And they understand exactly what they need to do when they need to do it. And that has to be applauded, my friends. Because you root for a franchise that understands when enough is enough. And now that brings us to this question. Will this happen with a young George Pickens? Or is George Pickens going to continue to get himself together? Or will the Steelers offer George Pickens a 2-year, big money deal to say, hey, this is kind of your proving time, your prove it time. Your time to say, hey, you're off that first contract. You don't have that rookie stuff to deal with anymore in terms of excuses on your behavior and your immaturity. You're now a second contract guy. Now show us that you are going to be able to be that leader inside that wide receiver room. Show us that you are going to have that ultimate availability in terms of not getting yourself in trouble through the NFL on the field by doing stupid things. Show us that you're not going to be risk of getting kicked out of a football game for personal foul penalties. Show us that you can make this happen and make this work, and show us why we should pay you as one of the top targets in the NFL, because the Steelers will pay them. Or pay George, rather. But George has to show them something, or guess what, my friends? You may see the departure of George Pickens. Now, does George Pickens just maintain here, show Mike Tomlin and Omar Khan, the organization, enough to where, yes, they get him back in the building, and then what do? Maybe they go out and get a T. Higgins, somebody like that can come in and really add to the arsenal for, I'm saying it yet again today, Russell Wilson in 2025, because I truly believe that's the direction the Pittsburgh Steelers are headed here. That's where I truly believe they're headed. I believe they are headed to a T. Higgins, George Pickens, Russell Wilson-led offense in 2025. That's where I'm thinking this thing goes. But that's for next season. That's for the offseason. But again, the Pittsburgh Steelers know exactly when it's time to part ways with players. And again, I want to warn you now that you better enjoy George Pickens in terms of his play and athleticism and the way he can go get the ball, because the time may be short here for young George if he can't get his attitude together, because you've seen other ultra-talented players be shipped out of the city of Pittsburgh for maybe, the same damn thing that George Pickens is doing. So I just wanted to bring that up and really emphasize what is going on there and what could possibly and potentially be. And I wanted to applaud the Steelers organization for being a top flight organization, a top flight franchise, a model franchise. And quite frankly, 90% of the teams in the NFL, they want to be the Pittsburgh Steelers. So, they want that culture. They want that Steeler way, frankly. So it's nice to know and nice to point out at times the good things that the Pittsburgh Steelers do in terms of player personnel and in terms of protecting the fan base from severe consequences in terms of draft capital, in terms of dead cap money and things of that nature. And they preserve this winning culture each and every year. And it's a very sacred thing and a very difficult task to be the protector of that Steeler way, of that ability to win, of that ability to stay competitive even in the darkest of times. It's a very important job, and that's why when people get brought in here, new people, it's always so worrisome, because you're always worried that they're going to mess up that Steeler way, that protect and not be a protector of that competitive nature that lies inside of that building on the south side, lies in that building at Acrisure Stadium. Also, I wanted to talk about here on a Friday, could Arthur Smith be a dark horse to be the New York Jets' new head coach in 2025? Is that something that Arthur Smith may be interested in? I seem to think no, my friends. I answered this question on Steel City Live the other night, and I wanted to say this, and I still think it to be true. I think Arthur Smith for sure remains in the city of Pittsburgh for one more season. He's on a 3-year deal. I for sure can see Arthur Smith being back in 2025. I think it is his major reset. A guy that doesn't have to make all the money. A guy that is already wealthy before he ever even came into football. A guy that is playing or is coaching more for the love of the game right now than anything. And I think being in the city of Pittsburgh, having his family there, and understanding the steadiness and the way, again, we just talked about the franchise and their winning culture and their competitive nature. I think that that's appealing, ultra appealing to Arthur Smith. And I think that keeps him in the city of Pittsburgh at least for another season until maybe he's ready to go out there and step in and get another head coaching job. Because honestly, my friends, if you are a head coaching candidate, it's probably not good to just settle for jobs like the New York Jets, to settle for jobs that are with franchises that are historically bad just for the sake of having a head coaching job. Because 9 times out of 10, you're not going to be able to fix it there because the problems and issues run far deeper than what any head coach can just fix in a short period of time, because that's all you're going to get is a short period of time. And why move your family? Why go through the transition to go to one of these franchises when you know it's just going to be probably a disaster like it's been for everybody else? And, sometimes you can't get a big head and think you can fix everything. And if you're guys like Arthur Smith that could potentially be a head coach candidate, it's probably who of you to stay in a steady organization, one in which you know you're going to have some success, to keep your market value high, and wait for an opportunity from a quality cornerstone type franchise. That's what you should be waiting for. A chance that could give you a good and golden opportunity to succeed. Why put yourself in a bad situation when you don't have to, and you can sit here, and if you don't need the big, huge salary that comes with being an NFL head coach, like Arthur Smith doesn't need it, maybe you could go out there and just, again, wait for that opportunity to get to a good franchise that perhaps has a quarterback in place, that perhaps has some of the pieces in place already, before you go there to where you're not having a total rebuild. So I think the stories about Arthur Smith being a dark horse anywhere, unless it's a cornerstone type franchise, a premier franchise in the NFL, are not going to come true. And I think Arthur Smith stays in the city of Pittsburgh in 2025. So let's squash those headlines. That was a little house cleaning here on a Friday, getting rid of some of these topics that don't pertain to football right this second. And I wanted to get those out of the way here, and we'll dive in tonight to Week 14 on the live show on Steel City Live. We're going to do Steelers score predictions. I'll write them all down. I'll have everybody's score prediction put down for this game here in Week 14 against the Cleveland Browns. We can recap some of the score predictions from last time, Week 12, and talk about those and see who was kind of close there again, and kind of revisit that since it was such a short time ago. Also, we're going to give you our Feel the Steel moments tonight. Keys to victory. Instead of keys to victory, I'm going to give you my Feel the Steel moments tonight that we poached off of one of our viewers, Feel the Steel. So don't forget, we'll be doing that Feel the Steel segment tonight, talking about keys to victory. And Sean can give you his on Sunday, and I'll piggyback off of some of his and, hammer home some of those points and go off of what Sean's got going and what he's thinking for Week 14, Week 13. Week 14. It's Week 14, isn't it? Wow. Wow, my friends. It's crazy. Week 14 already. All right. Again, it's December football, guys, and if you're not there for Steel City Live tonight, you ain't got a pulse, man. You're not a diehard. You're not a diehard if you're not there tonight. It's December football, guys, and it don't get no better than this. Again, enjoy this ride. Enjoy the time that you have here with this stellar ball club here in 2024, and what is hopefully just one of those deep, magical playoff runs. All right, guys, until tonight, I'm Jason. This is Mike Drop Sports. Peace, my friends.